Haven't seen any dogs.
Okay, welcome back. Instead of economic development, housing and general affairs, we are now going to pivot to our outdoor recreation industry, and very excited to have Kelly Ault here representing. I think we're on red here, which is concerning me.
We're on red.
This is red.
We're live. Yes, you're right. Can you guess? Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe.
I know enough about technology to know that's not good when it's on red. So without further ado, we are going to, do you know all of us? So why don't we just introduce myself?
Thank you.
Tom Chittenden, I represent Chittenden Southeast.
Okay, Sharon and Staley. Just check.
Allison Clarkson, Windsor District.
Randy Brock, as you could probably guess from my questions last time, Franklin County and Albert.
Good morning. Good week, Shrubland County.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me, Chair Clarkson, members of the committee. I'm thrilled to be here to talk about the outdoor economy. I'm Kelly Ault. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance. And I'm here today to talk about this economy that, as you heard earlier from Commissioner Pelham's testimony, is driving economic and social impact in all of our rural and urban communities. We appreciate the opportunity to talk about the needs of the sector in business and workforce development and share a little bit about our organization. VOBA is a nonprofit established in 2018 with a mission to strengthen Vermont's outdoor industry. VOBA's 140 members represent the highly diversified sector, from the manufacturers that produce our gear and apparel, the retailers that sell it, the outdoor centers, lodges, and trail builders that support places to play, the guides, educators, and creatives that tell our stories, and many more that make Vermont's products and services for Vermonters and visitors. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, our state was ranked second in the nation in 2023 for its $2.1 billion contributions to the state GDP, which is 4.8% of Vermont's economy. Outdoor goods manufacturing grew by 15%, followed by increases in retail, accommodations, and food services. Snow activities, including skiing, snowboarding, and snowmobiling, drive local economies with an increase of 29%.
So you might want to advance the slide because you're on this slide.
Okay, thank you. We also were pleased that Governor Scott, in his address, recognized the strength of the outdoor economy and this data, and recognized the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, or VORAC, of which we work very closely with. The BEA reports an industry workforce of over 16,000, and that number of manufacturing employees increased 12% in 2023. These numbers complement the tourism data that you heard earlier and reflect a wide range of job opportunities for those entering the workforce, as well as those advancing their careers in the industry.
Before you leave the workforce, do you have a notion of that 16,000? How many are engaged and employed in manufacturing versus service? I mean, versus providing the outdoor experience?
That's a great question. I'd like to go back to the Bureau of Economic Analysis data and see if they break it out by the type of industry beneath the umbrella. I do believe
that would be great.
And that would be great data to share with you. VOBA's work fosters entrepreneurship, career pathways, and branding for the success of employers and employees. And this enables their contributions to vibrant downtowns and rural communities, quality recreation and natural resources, as well as equitable access to the outdoors in their workplaces and outside. VOBA was a partner in VORAC's Move Forward Together Vermont's statewide planning process last year to identify a vision and set of priorities for both businesses and the state. And VOBA involved 200 businesses in various forums and a survey to shape a work plan based on economic outcomes. The process centered on two objectives, and that they are equity and climate resilience, and these are aligned with VORAC. And the industry also identified impact areas in innovation and sustainability and career pathways. The process also strengthened our existing collaborations with organizations such as the Vermont Trails and Greenways Council, Ski Vermont, the Kelly Brush Foundation, and many more, as well as expanded those partnerships to include those in education, finance, conservation, and transportation. Data from Move Forward Together Vermont and our outdoor business survey with close to 70 respondents, combined with our policy survey with close to 50 respondents, has shaped policy priorities for VOBA and the industry's legislative session. And additionally, our entrepreneur support and our technical training made possible by grant funding from BORAC via the Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation, as well as the Economic Development Authority grant via the Department of Tourism and Marketing, have given us lots of insight into the needs of the sector. Therefore, VOBA is inviting investment in two areas. First, the VOBA climate outdoor business program provides targeted technical assistance for business adaptations that ensure innovation and stability in the face of climate change. It also supports industry shifts from supply chain, consumer behavior, and outdoor visitation changes. We heard in our survey that 58% of respondents reported being impacted by recent climate events, and they identified that technical assistance resources such as state and federal grants, financial and business planning, as well as marketing analysis and marketing campaigns were valuable to them in recovering from climate events or preparing for the future. Let's get into your question earlier. Our policy survey also prioritized flood recovery funding for physical, economic injury, and recreation infrastructure, as well as research on climate, what the risks are to businesses, and research that also informs adaptation financing. How can they best invest in their business to get an ROI and prevent them from disrupts in the future? We thank this committee and the legislature for support of the Business Emergency Gap Assistance Program, as that provided bridge funding the last few years to those businesses that needed it. And we asked for an investment of $250,000 in VOBA's technical assistance program, so we can continue to expand that support to Vermont companies that are demonstrating an ROI from sustainable and local production, technology upgrades in their facilities and their operations, as well as providing stewardship services on the land, as well as tour and hospitality services. The second investment is along the climate outdoor workforce program lines, where we have been providing through our grant funding the last 2 years, professional development, education, and training, as well as marketing tools around technical jobs, climate jobs, and those that facilitate a transition to skilled service.
Your blood.
Thank you. Energy efficiency, and jobs that attract a young and diverse workforce. We found that 65% of outdoor businesses plan to hire 1 to 5 employees in the next 12 months. However, they face a host of barriers, including the cost of living, lack of qualified applicants, as well as the lack of housing. Issues I know you're very familiar with and working to help address. Businesses cited investments in internships and apprenticeships, adult education, and career development for underserved communities as real opportunities for our state. We thank this committee for the affordable and employee housing programs, as well as support for the Office of Workforce Development. Those will really help in these areas and help our sector as well as other industries. We are asking for support to continue our work beyond this year in workforce education and professional development programs, so we can expand training. We have heard that it's an effective investment from businesses and that it helps increase employee engagement as well as reduce the skill gaps. The industry is strong despite years of pandemics and climate events because of this consistent private and public investment in the system. We know that climate strategy, entrepreneur innovation, and skill building pay dividends. Therefore, we cannot afford to invest in sustainability. We are excited to continue to attract young, active professionals to Vermont, to our communities, to raise their families, as well as bring health, wealth, and improve our current aging demographic. And lastly, I will remember to advance the slide on this one. We invite you to join us in the State House, as your constituents will be here on outdoor recreation in the State House on February 12th. So we're very excited to continue the conversations and help identify some solutions for the outdoor sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Questions? Yes, Patience.
I know I keep moving the goalposts on you, but one word that I think is just so helpful to start hearing more and more in your work is health. You know, that you create a lot of health infrastructure for Vermonters. obviously you're attracting people from out of state, but it's stuff that Vermonters can take advantage of in their backyards that is just really good for their health and well-being.
Absolutely, and it's not moving the goalpost at all. One of the three themes that have come out of the Move Forward Together Vermont process is wellness. So the three themes, and I'm sure you'll hear from more at this session and Outdoor Recreation Day about stewardship, wellness, and economic development as the three pillars. And we see a lot of outdoor businesses, outdoor programming, community organizations that are organizing and creating culture in the outdoors as really being a gateway to better health and health outcomes, therefore better for our community.
No, and all our trail work in Woodstock, the Ottauquechee Health Foundation has been a key partner. So it's, this is woven into the fabric for lots of our outdoor. I'm curious about your housing, and how, because a number of your employers have, in part because they're resorts and they have housing available. Some of them sadly started to sell housing before we had housing prices. The Woodstock Inn Resort sadly started the whole campaign of selling their housing, which they're now having to pedal fast and reclaim housing. But how many of your members are acting proactively building housing for their seasonal workers and or their full-time?
I don't have a good
And
sense
just
of
the other thing I
number.
want to chat about are the visa issue and its impact on your industry, which is big.
Yes. I can't speak to the numbers in the housing around the employer housing, but I can speak to a couple experiences. You will hear from Dave Beckwith, Director of Mountain Operations at Killington, and he will speak to the fact that they house 500 employees and they support transportation lines that get them to their workplace. And so that is a real bright light about an employer that's really trying to support that need and that barrier. Another example is Vermont Gloves and Cooper purchasing a building and rehabbing it, completely weatherizing it and benefiting from some of the investment opportunities there are, and now has a 10 unit building, of which 4 houses employees. And he said it's been a really positive experience for Vermont Glove as well as the employees. So I know that there are some
Vermont Glove in outdoor rec.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the leading manufacturers.
Yes,
They have pivoted from being a utilitarian product to really being a product in the outdoor market. And
so that's part of why I asked that question about manufacturing versus service versus,
Yeah.
and the visas.
Manufacturing is being a renaissance in the state at all levels.
And the visas.
And the visas, I would like to defer to someone like Molly Mahar from Ski Vermont, who could better speak to the visas, as I'm not quite been quick to answer that question.
We'll have Molly at another point. Right.
Thank you.
Terrific. So we've asked you to bring some voices
Yes.
to this business area that our committee oversees. Who might we, unless we have other questions right now, who next do you want me to put on the
I'm
hot
going to
spot?
turn it over to Emily Foster, Director of People and Planet Impact at Burton Snowboards.
Great. Welcome. Welcome, Emily. And if you just be kind enough to identify yourself, go for the gusto.
No slide.
That is great.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. I'm Emily Foster, a resident of Calais and the Director of People and Planet Impact at Burton Snowboards. We are a snowboarding and outdoor gear company founded by Jake Burton Carpenter out of a shed in Londonderry in 1977. Burton has grown into a global brand with customers and operations across North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. But today, Burton is still privately held, family owned, and a company that is rooted in Vermont. Our global headquarters, our flagship store, our Center for R&D and Product Innovation are all located in Burlington. We have retail partnerships across the state, and Burton employs about 330 Vermonters who are members of your community and participants in the outdoor recreation economy. Over the last 10 years, Burton has undergone a different transformation to become a purpose-driven business. We have formalized that by changing our legal registration to a Vermont Benefit Corporation in 2019.
Oh, great.
and achieving B Corp certification. Being a B Corp is more than just earning a new credential. It's continual progression and the way we stay successful in the long run. Our belief is that by supporting the health of our employees, improving conditions in our supply chains, and minimizing our impact on the environment, we're building a more resilient business that can adapt to seize opportunity and to ride up the storms. As an outdoor brand rooted in snowboarding, you don't have to stretch to see the connection between Burton and climate change. We're a highly seasonal business, so shorter winters, unpredictable snowfall directly impact our bottom line. It's not only our responsibility as a purpose-driven business to take action, it's also a business imperative. That's why we set ambitious, science-aligned carbon reduction targets. Our goal is to reduce our greenhouse gases emissions from our facilities and operations by 42% and to more than halve our supply chain emissions intensity by 2030. And looking into the future, we're aiming to reduce our global absolute emissions by over 90% by 2040. Because we're a product-based company, most of our emissions come from producing and shipping our gear globally. It's notoriously challenging to reduce supply chain emissions, but we're making progress through product design choices and working with our global manufacturers to incorporate renewable energy on site. The materials we use are a significant driver of our impact on the planet. We're sourcing recycled materials, organic fibers, and using safer chemistry in production. We're also bringing more circularity principles into innovative product design. And by that, I mean our goal is to make top performing gear that is durable, repairable, and recyclable. We've made progress on repairing our products in-house and empowering customers with DIY parts and tools, but we struggle with our durable products that are ultimately hard to recycle. To make this circular model hum, we need a network or ecosystem of service providers and new ways of working. We're exploring new revenue streams with product take-back and resale and looking for inventive ways to make new things without new resources. For example, we've worked with another great Vermont company, Birdie Blue, to create bags out of materials that were destined for the landfill. All of these initiatives are helping us on our way towards our climate goals, but we recognize that's not enough. Burton can't move the needle on climate change alone. Climate change demands progress at the system level, and system level change needs investment. Whole energy grids and transportation systems must transform. We need new climate adaptation systems for product recovery and material recycling. We need a workforce that's equipped with the technical skills for new jobs in the circular economy. Burton stands as partner in finding solutions to confront climate change. And as a member of the outdoor community, we're asking the state to invest in Vermont businesses and our workforce to meet the challenges of climate change and to build a more resilient outdoor economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In that, what are your top? I mean, we have a lot of areas in that testimony that we are investing already. And where are you prioritizing our more modest resources?
Top
in
of
investment?
mind, top of mind for Burton are on the recycling and repair economy, keeping our products in use for longer. We know that the majority of our emissions are already baked in by the time the product gets to your door. So the best thing that we can do is make it last as long as possible, regardless if it's one consumer or passed along to multiple.
Right.
Also thinking about this as an ecosystem that we need support for our resorts, for our guides, everyone that helps make the outdoor economy happen and increase participation.
And workforce, I assume it's a piece.
Yes, certainly. I mean, technical skills for repair and product recovery are needed. That's
Great. And how many people do you employ?
About 330. We have some seasonal employees
And
in Vermont, excuse me.
yeah. And how many are manufacturing and how many are in your retail? I mean, how do you roughly?
In Vermont, we have few manufacturing employees. Mostly we have a custom manufacturing site in Burlington, but that runs our hard goods R&D.
But where is your primary manufacturing?
Primarily, our manufacturing is in Southeast Asia and East Asia, a little bit in South America and Europe.
So how many employees do you have globally?
Globally, almost 1,000.
So one bill that you all, Burton, might be interested in is S11. It's now on the wall judiciary. It has to do with stewardship trust, which is what Patagonia created in order to have legally binding contracts over commitments that the enterprise makes that will exist beyond the current boardroom composition. So B Corps are great, and that's through a third-party certification, but a stewardship trust with a longer amount of time. This is proposing a 500-year stewardship trust would actually be a constitution for the business to give greater assurances to your current customers and future generations that the business would be held to account for the commitments that you made today. So it might pique your interest to look at it. It's what Patagonia did, and it would just enable Vermont businesses to look at stewardship trust to enshrine a lot of what you're doing with your B Corp.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Did you introduce that?
Yeah.
It's a terrific bill. I look forward. So your carbon footprint obviously is fairly substantial if you're doing most of your manufacturing in Southeast Asia. So that is I can see why you're very committed to that piece in addition to your return, your use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without kind of model. Do you have, I assume, well, that's there's all sorts of things to discuss that. Any other questions? Thank you. This is just terrific. Thank you, Emily. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
We're thrilled with Burton. Burton no more experience was in Woodstock on Gilbert Hill and at Suicide Six, then Suicide Six. Who is up next? Do we have Jonas Cole? Jonas, are you on live? Oh, there you are.
Hi, everybody. Can you see and hear me all right?
We see and hear you.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, my name is Jonas Cole. I'm the owner and founder of Vermont Bike and Brew, and I hope that someday my business can have the history that Burton currently has. But for the present, we are the little guy in the room. We're a much smaller business, and really grateful for the chance to speak with the Senate Economic Development Committee today.
Hold on, Jonas. We're just going to make you a little louder, I think.
Sounds good. Let me know when you're ready.
Are you a Thetford Cole?
I sure am.
That's what I thought. It's good to see you.
I remember meeting you, Allison, when you were canvassing door to door, and you were wearing some really flashy, memorable shoes. So you made an imprint on me.
We're working on
Try it now.
try. Would you just speak to us one more time here, Jonas?
Yes. How's that for volume?
Much better. Great. Terrific. Thanks. That's on our end. We apologize.
All good. So an introduction for those of you who don't know, Vermont Bike and Brew is a for-profit business that I started in 2020. We offer electric bike rentals, sales, and tours, and the business operates out of the home that I grew up in Thetford, Vermont. But our self-guided tours cover a big stretch of central Vermont with established routes in Windsor, Norwich, South Royalton, and Randolph, and we have plans to expand in the near future. Each tour relies really heavily on the partnerships that we formed with other local businesses, breweries, farm stands, general stores, cafes, creameries. And for each tour, we deliver e-bikes to our partner brewery and meet our guests there. We send our riders on 3 to 4 hour routes. They follow turn-by-turn directions on a map on their phone that gets mounted to their handlebars, and the map routes them to each of the partner businesses where they're incentivized to patronize that business by receiving a small discount. This tour model allows us to double down on our investment in the partnerships that we formed and in our local economy, and reflects the all ships rise with the tide approach that we take to doing business. We welcome tourists as well as tons of lifetime Vermonters who are looking for new discoveries in their backyard. Our tours are perfect for couples, families, groups of friends, bachelor parties, weddings, and really e-bikes are for everyone. They're a wonderful tool that allow people of all ages and abilities to enjoy time spent outdoors together. And I think it's safe to say that Vermont Bike and Brew might not be here today if it weren't for the support that we've gotten from VOBA and recent investments that have been made in the outdoor business economy and sustainable transportation within Vermont. The quality of our services is extremely high and our products is extremely high, but that quality alone could not have sustained us through the flooding that Vermont experienced in 23 and 24. As one example, Buzzell Road in Thetford is one of the most scenic, most accessible, safest roads that we send our guests on, and it was destroyed by flooding. That same summer, we were in a second year of our partnership with Outer Limits Brewing Company in Proctorsville. Outer Limits sits near the Black River, flooded and destroyed the brewery, and the brewery was not able to recover from that destruction. They closed their doors permanently in 24, which brought an end to the southernmost tour that we were offering at the time. In addition to those setbacks, the forecast just showed rain every single day, and our sales were down dramatically, even on the days when it ended up being sunny. We lost a huge amount of revenue. I applied for a grant through the Main Street Economic Recovery Fund, and I was denied because my property didn't suffer any physical damage. But VOBA advocated on my behalf, emphasizing my loss of access to public roads, loss of partnerships, and lost revenue. And eventually, Vermont Bike and Brew was awarded a small grant that we would not have received without VOBA's help. And while that grant didn't cover nearly all of our losses, it really gave me incentive and encourage to keep pushing on, and really instilled a deep appreciation in me for VOBA's work. One silver lining that did come from the flooding is that Bike and Brew was forced to expand our operations and open new tours in areas that were less dramatically affected. And this move has allowed us to be more resilient in the face of climate change and ensured our ability to continue to provide services to our guests. Many of our guests experience an e-bike for the first time when they're riding with us. And if you've ridden an e-bike yourself, you know how transformative that exposure can be. It makes people reconsider their commute, how they get to the grocery store, how they get their kids to daycare. And for many, it's the first time that they can imagine leaving their car at home and biking around town despite our hilly terrain. I often get asked questions like, how much do these bikes cost? And do you sell this in my size? Riding e-bike makes people want one of their own, but in e-bike, a quality e-bike is a really significant investment. Fortunately, utility companies like Green Mountain Power offer a $200 incentive to their customers for purchasing an e-bike locally. And this incentive makes e-bikes a little bit more attainable for a large portion of my customers. However, lower income customers still need additional assistance, which is why programs like the State of Vermont e-bike incentive, which has been backed by this committee, is so important. And as a result, more Vermonters can leave their car at home, take a bike out instead, and reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Now that you're familiar, at least a little bit, with what we do at Vermont Bike and Brews and some of the ways that we've received support over the last few years, I'd like to throw in a few requests. Number one would be continued investment in infrastructure that supports the growth of Vermont's outdoor industry. There's a proposed Route 5 bike corridor that's on the table, and that's an example of an investment that would really encourage the growth of businesses in the outdoor sector, and it would have widespread economic benefits to hospitality businesses, food, and other industries with an uptick in bike-related tourism. That would be a huge project to see come to life. That would be really exciting. Number two would be
that's moving forward as far as I understand the Route 5 corridor.
Yeah, and my understanding is that it's moving forward bit by bit. I've been in touch with Carl Kemitzer, who's a huge advocate for that program, and he's looking for basically town by town help to keep pushing things forward, because some towns are more on board with that project than others, and there's a lot more work needed in certain areas than there is in others. You know, if a road needs to be modified, or if we need to cross private land in some sections, that is a much bigger ask than if it's public land that we have access to already.
Sorry.
Another ask would be
What's
continued
your next ask?
in workforce.
Yeah.
Continued investment in workforce development. Bike mechanics are really hard to find, and paying for those employees to continue honing and developing their skills is a cost that I know many bike shops struggle with. And then lastly, continued investment in technical assistance programs for outdoor businesses. I recently began a financial advising program through the Capital Innovation Lab. It's being provided to VOBA members for free, thanks to grant funding that VOBA has secured. And I'm using the program to help me understand the investments that would be involved that will be involved as I expand Vermont Bike and Brew operations to other parts of the state. So investment in more technical assistance programs like that one will allow businesses in the outdoor sector to be creative and nimble in the face of climate adversity, and continue to be drivers of a strong local economy for many years to come. And again, I thank you for the chance to speak, and welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you, Jonas. Both of you, I would hope you have submitted your testimony to Heidi. If you could make sure you submit your testimony, that would be really helpful. Oh, good. I haven't had a chance to see it on my desk, but that's great. Thank you. You know that, of course, because you're a child of the law school, it's like I'm a spouse of the law school, you know that we have a small business legal clinic that we are doing. I assume you know about that. That should also be a help for all our small businesses in Vermont. But it is, it's run by Nicole Killen out of the law school. And it's been for legal issues, not necessarily I don't know what you're calling technical issues, but legal issues are often a big issue. And that is a resource for everybody, for not so much for Burton, but definitely for Jonas Cole, Vermont Bike. Any questions for Jonas? How many counties have you rolled out to so far?
Oh, the audio broke up during that question. Could you ask it again?
How many counties have you been able to roll out into? How many counties do you have tours in?
That's a great question. What county is Randolph in?
Orange. Orange County.
Orange. What I didn't
Part of Orange. So then it would just be in Windsor to this point. I would like to bring the business farther north along the I-89 corridor. There's a lot of traffic up that way. There are a lot of wonderful partner businesses that we can highlight. And those are really the ingredients for what make a quality Vermont Bike and Brew tour. If we can direct people towards the general stores, farm stands, breweries, businesses that make it wonderful for us to live here, then we have the recipe for a great tour.
Yeah, Addison County, I'm sure, has their hand up. Great. Thank you so much, Jonas. I think we're going to pivot now. It's great to see you again. I don't dare show you the shoes I'm wearing today.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jonas. We're going to pivot to Dave. Dave at Killington, I believe. Dave Beckwith, welcome to Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. I hope you've been listening in.
I have, yes. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. I have to say, I'm very intrigued by these flashy shoes that.
I know. I'm going to restrain
to see them
myself.
in person. To jump right into it, I'm Dave Beckwith. I'm the director of mountain sports here for Killington Resort and Pico Mountain. I oversee the mountain sports school, rental operations, childcare, golf course, and the mountain bike school in the summertime. I like to say that I'm responsible for everything fun here at the resort. Killington was founded in 1958, and it is the largest ski resort in the eastern United States. It remains a premier destination for year-round recreation, and we attract more than 750,000 visitors annually. And we are affectionately known as the Beast of the East due to our expansive terrain and extended season, which makes it a standout in the industry. We're typically one of the first resorts to open and last resorts to close each season, and we proudly provide exceptional experiences across winter and summer sports. So in addition to skiing and riding, we offer mountain biking, hiking, golf, and a summer adventure center. Our resort employs over 300 year-round staff members and right around 1,500 seasonal workers at peak season. This makes us a vital economic engine for our local communities, including Killington, Rutland, and the surrounding areas. So despite the vast scope of our operations, Killington is deeply committed to environmental stewardship. We prioritize the protection of natural resources and the conservation of wildlife habitats, ensuring minimal disruption to the surrounding ecosystems. This commitment extends to preserving forest integrity and preventing fragmentation, allowing wildlife to thrive in their natural habitats. So as climate change increasingly impacts Vermont's winter sports industry, Killington's invested significantly in energy efficient technologies and infrastructure. Our efforts include upgrading snowmaking systems and electric grooming equipment, utilizing technology to optimize resource use while ensuring snowmaking capabilities are available during peak periods. And this also includes events like our World Cup, which draws over 30,000 spectators annually. The Killington Resort, we've got the largest snowmaking operation in the country with over 1,500 guns. So energy use is our second largest expense behind labor costs. And as part of the Efficiency Vermont Energy Savings Account pilot program, we completed a number of initiatives that saved us nearly 435,000 kilowatt hours annually. These projects included replacing outdated air compressors, upgrading snowmaking equipment, installing heat recovery systems, and enhancing energy recovery ventilation in our base area. In addition, we're on track to install 1,000 low energy snowmaking guns this year, which will further reduce our energy consumption. We've actually already saved approximately $1 million in energy costs over the past 2 seasons. We also support renewable energy through our Cal Power program. We purchase more than 1.1 million kilowatt hours annually from Vermont farmers who generate electricity from cow manure. And this energy powers the K1 gondola and our Peak Lodge. Our commitment to sustainability extends to water conservation as well. One thing that many folks don't know about Killington is that we have our own wastewater treatment plant here. And since 1987, our innovative water recycling systems at our 6 base lodges have saved over 62 million gallons of fresh water, with daily savings of up to 35,000 gallons during peak periods. Additionally, we're proud to offer the most electric vehicle charging stations of any ski area in the country, which helps reduce our carbon footprint. I believe we're at 47 EV charging stations at this point in time. Recruiting and retaining a skilled workforce has been challenging over the years, but we've forged some very strong partnerships that helped us address housing, transportation, and labor shortages. We provide housing for just shy of 500 employees, and we operate a bus system that facilitates transportation to and from work. We've acquired a few local properties, making it easier for our staff to commute. This also provides a boost for the local economy because many of our employees actually have second jobs and they work night shifts with many restaurants and shops in town. So it's a true benefit for the local community. And our partnership with the Marble Valley Regional Transportation District has been instrumental. With over 375,000 annual trips, this also includes 75,000 commuter and employee-related journeys. We also collaborate with Vermont State University and the Castleton campus, offering work experience for students in the Resort Hospitality Management program. This is a 3-year Bachelor of Science program, and many of these students go on to secure positions with us or in other resorts across the industry. Some of our most valuable team members here are in management positions, including 2 current executive team members that graduated from this program. The growth of our bike park and expanding local trail network supported by VORAC has also led to increased demand for skilled bike mechanics. I'd like to say that a bike mechanic in a mountain town is almost as valuable as an auto mechanic, and that skill set is becoming more few and far between. But in partnership with VOBA and local bike shops, we initiated a professional mechanic training program back in 2024, and there's another one planned for this spring. These programs deepen the technical expertise of current mechanics and creates a talented pipeline for seasonal hires. So Killington's transitioning to local ownership, which allows us to preserve our independent culture and continue prioritizing the well-being of our employees and guests. Our long-term vision includes a $6 billion investment over the next 25 years, reinforcing the role of outdoor recreation as a key driver of Vermont's economy. So in conclusion, Killington and Piker Resorts are guided by our core values, being stewards of offsetting climate change in the snow sports industry, addressing workforce challenges, and fostering community growth. We're very proud to collaborate with organizations such as VOBA, Efficiency Vermont, Ski Vermont, to support the continued growth of Vermont's outdoor economy. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today and look forward to advancing everything together.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Any questions for you? Tell us about your housing, your workforce. I'm just curious on your workforce. Do you grow people into full-time employees from some of the internships? Have you done a hospitality internship or do you have a sort of formal way of doing that? Or is that just,
Yeah, great question. So with Castleton University, this is a phenomenal program to grow industry professionals. There's typically about 35 to 40 students a year, and there's classroom work. In fact, we allocated some of our space down on Route 4 in one of our retail areas. We developed some nice professional classrooms for the university. And all these students do either front of house or back of house internships with us as well. So they are paid internship situations, and a lot of these students have chances to be involved in management positions right out of the gate. I can tell you as a snow sports industry professional, I would have loved to have an opportunity like this at that age to be able to get involved with like hands-on, tangible management leadership experience in the snow sports industry.
That's great. And your bike tech, you offer a certificate if they complete that program, and how many weeks is that bike tech program?
We do. We will spread out over 4 to 6 weeks, a couple night programs this last summer, just to try to attract a larger base.
Got it. And what do you offer at the end of it?
In terms of work opportunities, or
No, in terms of certification for them to be able to take elsewhere.
yeah, it's more of just you've accomplished this certificate, professional certification, and who has rolled it out and such. So it's a nice something tangible that these bike mechanics can take to another resort or to a local shop, just saying that, hey, I'm not walking through the door, with zero
Right, so
experience.
it is a certification of some
Yeah.
variety, certified
Correct.
by
Yes.
or academic, I mean, by BTC or Castleton, who's that certified by?
Just run through our local bike techs that are qualifying it. So it's been an in-house program that we're still looking to advance for the following seasons.
Now that would be great. Housing, I think somebody teed you up as saying you would house 500 of your employees. Who was that? That was you. That was Cal.
Yeah. We do. Housing has been very difficult for us in the last few seasons. And there also was a comment regarding visa usage as well. And we've seen a shift in our operation here where we've actually reduced the number of J1 and H2B visa holders that we have due to being able to offer more housing. We've got more domestic employees here too. So I believe we have 463 beds over a few properties that we've acquired over the last couple of years. And our goal is to make sure that these properties are conveniently located on a bus route so staff can get back and forth to work. It's also like deeply subsidized housing for these employees too. So they pay next to nothing. We make it very affordable for them to be in housing.
Great, thank you for that. How many employees do you have actually altogether?
So peak season, we get close to 1,500 employees in the middle of the winter.
Right. Thank you. Anybody else? I don't want to ask all the questions. Thank you very much. That was terrific and illuminating. I'm always stunned to hear that you're the largest ski resort in the country. How do you measure that? Is that by rides, by land, by lifts, by vertical? I mean, not by vertical feet, Aaron. So
Sure.
So how are we the largest?
So largest in the East, with our trail count with 157 trails, total skiable acreage, 24 lifts, and we have 3,000 feet of vertical drop here too. So we tick a lot of the boxes, and the sheer volume that we can accommodate with our 6 different base lodges is just makes us the largest in the East.
The largest in the East, not in the country.
Yes.
Right.
The
The
largest in the
largest
East.
in the East, the beast of the East. Great. Thank you very much. This was terrific. And if we have further questions, we will be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So we are no more questions. Any sum up thought, Kelly, before we shift to Chris Curtis?
Well, if perhaps I could clarify the certificate question.
Yeah, because it's just one this committee is interested.
Yes, of course. And VOBA is the organizing organization that hosts and administers the bike training
Oh, you
program.
do? Okay.
Yes, we initially did a pilot with our grant, and this year we're able to expand significantly and in 3 cohorts around the state with the EDA grant through the Vermont Department of Tourism and Marketing. And so we have worked with industry to develop a certificate of completion that is rooted in the Park Tool School, which is a national industry recognized institution that does curriculums and does trainings for professionals. And we have worked with our shop cohorts in Vermont to Vermontize it so it's applicable to Burlington and the market they have there, to Killington and the market they have there. And we're starting one in Central Vermont and adding advanced level courses this year. So we're able to develop a curriculum, a certificate that is recognizable by our industry and that will outline those lesson plans, those competencies, and be able to, as Dave mentioned, those participants can take that to shops and show kind of what they've accomplished, or what those fundamentals for those advanced skill sets are.
And how many students, how many participants are you able to have?
In the pilot, we had 6 in the 2 cohorts last year, Chittenden and Killington, and we are moving that up to 8 students in the 3 regions. So
8 in each region or 8 total?
8 total. So that will be 24 students plus our advanced trainings will allow for at least 8 in each of those. So that's another 16. So close to 40 students by the end of the spring. And the goal is to keep that instructor to student ratio low, because it is such a hands-on classroom and work, like experiential learning experience. So
Right.
we have instructors that are eligible tech from shop that are teaching. So there's a lot of mentorship. There's a lot of networking with our shops here in Vermont, with the hope that these mechanics then stay in Vermont, work in
Right.
our industry.
We, more to follow on that, because I think that's a terrific and much needed, but how people know about it and how people can engage with it is another issue.
And we're also doing that along trail building workshops. Similarly, we're providing 5 trail building trainings this spring. And we're also providing snow sport technician trainings. We hosted one in Burlington last September with our EDA grant, with a cohort of shops involving Outdoor Gear Exchange, Ski Rack, and a few others to do ski tuning and boot checks, biting checks, some of these fundamental skills. So we're trying to address some of the technical needs of these retail and resort towns.
This is great. I'd love to follow up with
Yeah,
you on that,
of course.
because with our new Office of Workforce Strategy and Development, Sabina needs to know about this as part of the coordination we need to know about. That's just great. Thank you all. Okay, great. Thank you all. This was terrific. And more to follow. Thank you. Thanks. Lovely to meet you all. Good to see you guys. Thank you. Kelly, we didn't touch base with Dave so much on visas, but if you would get any additional stuff on the visas.
I'm happy to. I'll see Molly this afternoon and we'll
Yeah.
put together something for you.
But Dave raised it as an issue, obviously. So it's
I'd like to get that.
Hi, how are you? What's that?
The chief of officers. That, I really want to first. Nice to meet you.
So we are going to pivot. Is Chris there?
Yes.
Right.
Probably should be.
Well, oh, Christopher, so that's right.
We sit together.
Christopher, we're on deck. We'd
There
love
room?
to see you.
Yes, there's one
Okay.
comment.
Hello, we were just
Hello.
waiting. Hello,
Good
hello.
morning.
You all mind if we pull up a second chair for Lisa?
Absolutely. we were
Renee?
expecting.
Is this chair taken? Can I leave it up on there?
And we are going to pivot.
And there are.
Chris, would you just mind up to close the door? Oh, we have 2 Chris's. This is great.
Do I have a third?
Just close
We have
the door.
three. You have a third?
And a third. Okay. We are going to pivot, members, to consumer protection. And we have our director here of the Consumer Assistance Program, which, as you may remember, is embedded in the AG's office. And Lisa is working hand in glove. So I don't know if you know all of us. We have new members. Should we just quickly go around the table? Or do you know everybody?
That would be.
I would appreciate it.
Okay, great.
So I'm Tom Chittenden. I represent Chittenden Southeast.
And you're missing Keisha Rom Hinsdale, who had to leave, but she also represents Chittenden Southeast. I'm Allison Clarkson. I represent Windsor District.
Randy Brock, Franklin and part of Grand Isle counties.
Good morning, Dave Weeks, Rutland County.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good. And the floor is yours. Introduce yourselves and take it away.
Great. Thank you for the record. My name is Christopher Curtis. I'm an Assistant Attorney General for the state of Vermont, and I'm the Director of the Consumer Assistance Program.
And I'm Lisa Jensen. I'm the Assistant Director of the Consumer Assistance Program within the Attorney General's Office and partners with the UVM.
So let's just start off by just acquainting you or orienting you to the Consumer Assistance Program generally. This is a 40+ year joint endeavor between the University of Vermont and the Attorney General's Office. It's a super exciting and dynamic program. It's the only program in the country like this across all the most attorneys general have some kind of resolution process, or they have people that take complaints from consumers. But we're unique in that we have this public-private partnership. And that allows us to do a number of great things. One, we have a source of trained student practitioners that get job training skills, workforce development skills, because they're learning how to answer phones and do data entry and recognize trends and understand the problems and concerns of citizens as they come in, and in some cases help them to work those out. So they do basic correspondence. We call it letter mediation, where a complaint comes in and there's a letter that goes out to the business that might be being complained of by a consumer. The business has 10 days to respond to that complaint because they have their side of the story of what might be going on, or that maybe there's just a misunderstanding. And then we relay that back to the consumer. So there's some transparency involved, and there's some paper that moves around, and the students are helping our 5-member staff engage in that letter mediation process. It's a really dynamic, exciting place to be because we get to help real people solve real problems. And very often these are your constituents who are calling us. We like to say, it might seem like in the grand scheme of things, a relatively minor matter, an appliance that somebody purchased and there's a few $100s at stake. But for that person, it might be the most important call they're making that day. And we pride ourselves on being a place where people can talk to a real person on the other end of the phone and really work through with them how to best help them. It might be solving their problem through a mediation process. It might be piercing the corporate bureaucracy so that they're not just on hold with a call center somewhere, but we can actually reach a person in the general counsel's office or in the government affairs office for a major corporation that can just help them solve the problem, just cut through the bureaucracy and the administrative. They might be talking to people that don't really have the power or the training to sort of make a final decision for them. And so we're very often able to assist them in that way.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So as Chris said, we do pride ourselves in that there's a live person that answers the phone. We get between 30 and 40 calls a day, so we can't get every live call, but we do call people back. And as Chris said, when they're making the call, they're not having a good day. And so our role is to understand, is to listen, and to figure out next steps. The next steps could be the complaint mediation process. It could be a referral to another agency or organization. We have about 1,400 of those calls a year because sometimes we'll have no idea where to go. So we have relationships with colleagues in state government and nonprofits, so we can make that warm transfer. And then we also take scam reports, and you probably all know as well. So it's really, I'm very proud of our team. We have a dedicated team of professionals, and I just am honored to lead the service learning class where the students are part of this and building these fabulous skills that they can take with them for internships and job opportunities.
So you have 5 professional AG employees and then roughly 40 students that are at.
Well, just to clarify, so because of the unique nature of the program, it's a combination. Some of the employees are technically UVM employees, and UVM helps us to offset the costs. So the university is contributing to essentially this taxpayer program to help get results for people, which is really, really great.
Right.
So that's a huge net benefit to the state. A couple of things I wanted to draw your attention to is we do have staff that are dedicated to certain areas. So several years ago, the legislature appropriated funds to sort of do a test pilot, if you will, to have a small business advocate, somebody who could actually, small businesses in Vermont are consumers. Because if you're acting in a way that you're just, if you're a small business and you make a purchase to buy all the paper supplies for your company, That's not part of your sort of traditional business dynamic where maybe you would have a contract dispute with somebody. You're just acting as a consumer, a big one, but it's a consumer purchase. So if something goes wrong with that transaction or you're not delivered, the materials that you were promised, they can call CAP and we will assist them and help work them through the program. And we very often are able to get a response on behalf of those folks. We get calls and complaints from nonprofit consumers, their businesses. So we have somebody who's uniquely dedicated and sensitive to the needs of small businesses who can help them resolve their issues and concerns. We also have, thanks to you all in the legislature, we have a dedicated staff person now whose sole function is to work on home improvement complaints.
Oh, great.
This is hugely important and has been a huge boon to Vermont consumers because for years we used to say, we would get 200, complaints a year about home improvement matters, but they came in with all the scam calls and the, business calls and the everything else that we might be getting. So to prioritize those and have somebody with a laser focus that is working on mediating those disputes has resulted in just the 18 months that person has so far been on the job, in 800,000 plus in refunds and savings to Vermont consumers. That is a big.
So say that one again. You've been involved with recovery?
Yeah, $800,000 savings and refunds to Vermont homeowners.
So when we resolve complaints, we look at, how much money was either refunded to the consumer or how much money did they save? And that's impact on their obviously financial stability and also putting money back into our economy. And I would add to that, having a dedicated person with home improvement specialty has then opened up the bandwidth for other staff to focus and do a deep dive into other topic matters. So retail, home improvement, and motor vehicles are our top three pretty consistently over the years. And so motor vehicles is a big one. And so we have staff that can focus on those complaints and again, laser focus, do a deeper dive.
So what are the three again?
The top three, home improvement, motor vehicles, and retail. And retail, about 60% are regarding online purchases versus local retail purchases.
And if I can just brag on our home improvement specialist a little bit, this person is uniquely talented and suited for this role. He, in a prior life, he'd grown up in California and his family was actually involved in the trades. So he knows about the construction industry and home building. He then worked for a time as a paralegal. So he kind of understands the nature of a law office and the kinds of issues that might come up or be presented. And then he was in customer service for UVM Medical Center. So he's really good at working with people and having the kind of soft skills and the emotional intelligence to help kind of de-escalate situations and try to get to a practical result. So he's been a really wonderful addition to our team.
It's great.
I think what you do is great, and I love that you take phone calls and you can have somebody talk to a live person. I wonder, do you currently have the capabilities? Are you supporting real-time text and chats? Because I find that to be very efficient. When I have an issue with one of the large companies, you can be a little more sophisticated in your sharing of detailed information. Do you have chat capabilities with your support professionals?
Not currently.
No.
However, potentially in the next year or two, we may have a new case management system.
Right.
We are working with the old reception system currently, so don't have that ability.
One thing we wanted your constituents to know about is who we are and what we do, and that we're available, even though we're housed on the University of Vermont campus in Burlington, we are a statewide service. So, for example, when the floods happened, our small business person went on the road and went to affected communities to talk with businesses about how to navigate FEMA or how to navigate insurance policies or how to and also just to be eyes and ears, what do you need? How can we be helpful to you? We sent a team of our CAP staff and students to Montpelier, literally spending part of the day just helping people dig out as a service because people needed the help and partly to hear from them, what do you need? What are you experiencing? How can we help you? And through that, we did get complaints that were flood related that we were able to assist people in resolving, either insurance companies or, cleanup and debris companies and things like that. So that was hugely important. I brought you an annual report for the first time ever last year. we created and pushed out an annual report because we thought it's almost like a small, as like a small nonprofit might do, but we want people to have an awareness of like, what do we actually do? What are the services that we offer? How do you find us? And then give the public and the taxpayers, frankly, some sense of like, what's the return on investment? This is about a little more than $200,000 per fiscal year to the state, with about 120 or so to the university annually. And so one of my goals is to really make sure that, when I took this position, when General Clark came into office, I thought to myself, aspirationally, like this should be $1 million a year endeavor. We get 8,000 to 12,000 calls for help a year. We should be able to return to taxpayers at least $1 million a year. Let's shoot for that. Let's push for that. Let's try to identify where the leverage is in situations and the matters that we can really get our hands around and spend time on those. We get a lot of calls about scams and robocalls where maybe it's a nuisance, but nobody's really actually lost money. And maybe the perpetrators are overseas. That's not a great use of administrative time and resources trying to track all that down. We can provide them with information and tips on how to protect themselves. And certainly if they've lost money or if they're victims of identity theft, we have a whole panoply of resources to help with that and try to stop monetary transfers from happening. But a lot of the calls we get actually aren't money lost, but they're calling because they're concerned or they're anxious or they're maybe fearful, or they're fearful on behalf of a loved one, or they've heard something and they want to verify, is this true or is this a hoax? So we give information, but we're not going to spend a lot of time trying to sort of mediate with, out of country actors. So they're just not going to respond to us. We want to spend time with consumers that have lost money in a commercial transaction of some kind where we can help get that money back. The consequence of that is in the first year alone, we had a record return for Vermonters of $1.89 million.
Wow.
That's great. I think, in a good year previously, it was, maybe on the $400,000 to $500,000 level. This year, for the first time ever, we will be over $2 million for the last year in savings and refunds to Vermonters. So we're really working hard to try to do more and do better all the time and try to improve that service to your constituents so that, yes, it's not just talking to somebody on the phone, but we can actually reach some kind of result. And just to give you some flavor for what this means, it's everything from, I remember a gentleman who called, who had an oral contract, in his words, for his, waste and recycling service that he'd just done for 10 or 15 years or something. And then at the end of that, they sent him something. He said, we're not doing that anymore. And so now you have to pay X. And it wasn't a lot. It was maybe an extra $15 or $20 a month or whatever it was. But we were able to reach a resolution that got him what his understanding of that agreement was extended for at least another year. And then say, make sure if you're going to change term, you have to talk to each other, because he should have a chance to, if he wants to go with a different service, do that. And if he wants to agree on new terms with you, that's fair and proper, but he should have some time to do all that. So that's an example. We had somebody with a major telecom snafu who suddenly was getting billed like a $20,000 bill. Where did this come from? What happened? It had to do with changing plans and family lines that weren't accounted for and data usage, and nobody was tracking it. And suddenly he got this huge bill, and we were able to get the company to say, you know what, that was a mistake. It was a good faith mistake. We're not going to try to charge for that. This person didn't have that kind of money. I remember a nonprofit organization that had purchased a out-of-state multi-purpose vehicle to provide dental services to low-income kids in a rural county in Vermont. And after 15 or 20 years, they needed an upgrade, something newer that had all the bells and whistles so they could really provide these services to kids, because they would go literally to the schools for kids that maybe their parents can't get them to the dental for an annual screening or, cavity fillings or whatever. An incredible service. They said it has to be weatherized. It's got to survive a Vermont winter. Has to be. This thing was coming from, somewhere down south. Showed up, not weatherized. And of course, they couldn't get through. I think it was more misunderstanding, but they couldn't sort of get through to anybody that can say, we'll fix that for you. We'll take that back and give you a refund if that's what you want. CAP was able to help those people do that. And that's a huge, for a small nonprofit. That was a significant investment for them. And a much needed service. So those are the kinds of stories that we're trying to tell and work on and seek resolution so that people can just move on with their daily lives and do what they want to do with their time and not be on the phone or trapped in a bad situation.
You are a great resource. Tom has a question for you.
Just, you mentioned your report, so I brought it up and I'm looking at this
have it here.
page. Yeah, and it shows in 2023, your recoveries quadrupled to 1.9 million. And I'm seeing something about home improvements being a large portion of that. Is that related to legislation that we passed that helped aid you in those recoveries? Or how would you characterize that huge jump from one year to the next?
Yeah, some of it's a great question, and it goes to.
We have two more, one for Keisha, one for Heidi.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks.
It's a great question. I think definitely fair to say it's part of the investment that lawmakers made into home improvement matters and saying we have to do something.
Well, and amplifying it as a public issue, I think, has been very helpful.
Yeah.
Just giving it a lot of airtime.
Yep. But I think having somebody that can really just confront those issues head on and just be the point person in our office so that every time, we get a couple hundred complaints a year and that person is there to help those people on those issues directly. Like I said, over the 18 months or so that Gabriel has been at this, he's returned roughly 800,000 plus in savings and refunds to consumers.
Which is great. How are you doing on scams? Because I know you've made a huge amount of effort educating the public on the incredible increase of telephone, of all scams, but particularly targeting our elderly. And so we just love an update on the progress we're making, because I know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one thing I would invite you all, if you have joined the Vermont Alert System, we are now partnered with them. So we have a specific scam alert you can sign up for, anyone can sign up for. And that is a choice of either email, text, or phone. So as Chris said, residents of Vermont will report scams to our office, either online or on the phone. We take that report, we release in January our top scam or annual scam report. So when consumers call us, again, what Chris said, we are education and prevention and, if necessary, recovery resources. If somebody has been a victim of this financial fraud, again, these are criminals, so it's not a consumer matter. So our big push is education, because we want to prevent somebody from having money stolen from them or their identity. We have a wonderful resource online, and that I think we probably mailed about 12 yesterday of our brochure that will have some call blocking information and has our method of how to spot a scam. So we do a lot of education. So we aren't the agency that will investigate financial fraud, but we are education and prevention and talking through, as Chris said, some people are afraid. They get a scary call, you miss jury duty, and the story goes on. And so we want to listen, we want to understand, we want to acknowledge and confirm this is a criminal. Hang up, let me get you some information.
And over time, one thing, part of our effort is, again, real results, tangible results, returning of funds, cash in pocket for Vermonters. So over time, if we're successful on prevention and education, one thing, there's always people sort of look at, well, how many calls, did you take last year, right? Well, on the one hand, yes, that's an indicator of need and requests for assistance. On the other hand, if we're truly successful in prevention and education, then people really start to understand, oh yeah, unsolicited text, unsolicited email, unsolicited phone call, just don't respond, right? Most of the time, those are going to be scams. Those are people fishing for information because you didn't ask anybody to call you for that information. So if we're truly successful over time, we should see two different lines on our chart. One is a reduction in the number of scam calls as people become more aware of and educated about, because they won't feel like, oh, I have to call and report this. When they say, oh, I just ignore that. That's not a real thing. The too good to be true, email scam, like, yeah, I know all about that. I don't have to report it. I just don't respond to it. Delete. So hopefully over time, we actually see a reduction in the number of those types of calls where people aren't really losing money, but they just recognize what's going on. And then we see an increase in the number of recoveries, the increase in the number of actual mediation that our team is working on. that's really the gold standard for us, because that's producing something tangible, and that's producing something for your constituents to actually save them real dollars.
Are you, Randy?
Just a couple of questions. One is kind of a follow-up of something we talked about 4 or 5 years ago, talking about the profusion of calls that would come in, robocalls and so on, and fraud that associated with that. Now, laws changed a little bit, technology changed a little bit, phone companies got better at dealing with it, because that's now morphed. And you get a great number, at least I get at least 4 or 5 a day if I ever answer the phone, of calls looking for Medicare recipients in order to, in effect, say, we can give you this thing because you've got bad back, right, or bad legs. We can get you this thing. It won't cost you a thing. All you have to do. And of course, they're in league with somebody who bills Medicare for it. But is that anything that you folks are working on at all? Those kinds of frauds, which are very, very widespread.
Yeah, if people are getting those calls, I mean, again, I would encourage you, any constituent or yourselves, if you get those calls, you should feel free to contact us, because we will follow up on those. We've had some success in the robocall area. As you may recall, our office has actually brought some actions and generated some settlements against actually the carriers of those, to say, like, you have skin in the game here. I don't think that you can just aid and abet that. If you have thousands of calls flooding into Vermont, and you knew or should have known that, and maybe you should have a duty to know.
And we passed some legislation, if you recall, several years ago, in order to beat that up, enable the Attorney General's office to go after them wherever they were, including those people who were participants, being callers and phone companies or middlemen.
And that has resulted in federal action, as you know, I think, with the shaken and stirred mechanism that has helped the phone companies crack down on some of these things. But I would just say, to the extent that you're getting calls about that, we have connections to our federal agencies as well. So there's a Social Security Inspector General, whose job is to track down Social Security and Medicare, frauds and scams. And so we have connections to those offices as well. Very often, if we're seeing what's going to be probably an extra jurisdictional set of scams and frauds, we're going to be reaching out to federal agencies to say,
and they're notoriously bad at
what's happening.
Things like Medicare fraud, for example. You have a number to call, but you will be on hold forever. If you get through, you'll be passed to another person. You'll be on hold for that person. It's very, very badly done.
Yes, and that's why we would encourage Vermonters to call our office, because again, we can get
They have
hold
a
of the right.
number that answers the phone.
Yeah,
And I think if somebody is really struggling with a service within the federal agency.
That's great to know. I wouldn't have called. I wouldn't.
Well, let me just finish. So we want to understand what the concern is, and if it's not something we can help with, we offer them the phone number for one of our federal representatives, because within those offices, there's case managers who have direct contacts with people in Social Security Administration, or let's say we get calls about the Postal Service. So that's a federal
Thousands of calls.
So again, our role is to answer the phone, to listen, to understand, and figure out what's next. And if what's next is maybe a federal agency, then we'll get them to the right place.
But if it's criminal conduct that's being alleged, I would be reaching out to our counterpart, actual people or attorneys within those agencies, to forward that to them and probably say, this may be part of a batch that you're getting. And so, we're seeing this trend. What are you guys doing about it?
I also noticed in looking at the list of kinds of calls, kinds of things that you work on, I don't see anything about junk fees. Are you getting any? Do you hear anything about junk fees? I know the feds were quite.
I have a pulse on complaints and calls as sort of the operations manager, and I don't recall one in the last year at least.
Interesting. The most frequent kind of junk fee, and I testified as a Washington for bipartisan on the issue of junk fees, that they're attempting to do something, whether they actually pass something, I'm not sure. But the most common is hotels, and there are a number of hotels here in Vermont, usually prominent hotels and well-known hotels, that in addition to the fee that's advertised, let's say for $200 a night, there will be a resort fee. There could be a heritage fee. There could be a historic place fee, a whole bunch of which they add to. And typically the person doesn't see that fee until they check out, because they're never told about it when they check in. And so they may have a 20 to 30% increase in the total price that they pay for that hotel room because of that junk fee. And
I
they're really
wonder,
good.
yeah, I wonder if we're not getting those complaints because maybe
I suspect so.
tourists and visitors are coming from other states, and so then they're staying
And
in the
then
hotel.
Vermonters who have suffered it in another state aren't gonna call you.
Oh, they can, at least one party has to be in Vermont.
Yeah.
So we absolutely, well,
But I mean, it probably doesn't.
That's a trend.
I just wonder if it's hidden from you if you're not looking for it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we're a responsive agency, so our primary purpose is to respond to the calls and complaints that we get from your constituents. So we get, as I mentioned, I think 8,000 to 12,000 calls a year, depending on the year. So it's a huge volume for a small staff. And so we're trying to get back to people in real time and have actual, of course, people are on the phones all day, or the students are too. So we have a lot of voicemails, and so a lot of callbacks. And so we're engaged in like the real time response to what we're hearing. That doesn't mean those issues don't exist, but if they're not trending in a way that they're kind of rising to the top of that list, then it's hard for us to know, we don't have investigators to go out and look for these things.
I think we'd love to have you put your antenna up on it,
Yes.
and which would be great. So thank you so much. More to follow as the data privacy bill works its way through. We'd also, I think, love to hear about complaints, things that come to you about data privacy and about breaches of privacy, which will be interesting. So more to follow on that. That, as you know, is beginning in the hands.
Thank you all so
Thank
much
you
for your
so
time.
much for your work.
thank you very much.
You're a great starter place for us. Expect everyone to
Please
start.
do, please do.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks
rest of your day.
Bye.